Welcome back to Unit 11. In this video, we're going to read the story, then we will answer the questions together. Follow with me as we read. The title is Watch Out for Dragons. Where do you find dragons? Many people will say only in storybooks. But there is a real place where dragons live. It is the island of Komodo. So let's explore. Let us go explore. First, we must find it. In an atlas, look up Indonesia. This is a large country north of Australia. It has thousands of islands. Komodo is one of the smaller islands, the smaller ones. It is about 600 miles south of the equator. The dragons that live on Komodo are very fierce. They are protected and live in Komodo National Park. In storybooks, dragons are large creatures. They breathe fire. They have wings, sharp fangs, and claws. Of course, they are imaginary. The Komodo dragons are actually lizards. They do not have wings. Their long yellow tongues look like flames only when they shoot out and test the air for smells. These creatures are very big. They may grow to be 10 feet in length, and they can weigh 200 pounds or more. In fact, they are the largest lizards now living on Earth. They have long lives. Many live to be over 30 years old. The people on the island stay away from these hungry hunters. An adult Komodo dragon has an enormous appetite when it has not eaten for several days. This is when it is most dangerous. It will look for a place to hide. Often it chooses a place near a trail that other animals walk on. Then it waits. It keeps very still. If it is lucky, a deer, a wild boar, or a snake will come close. By the time the animal becomes aware of any danger, it's too late. The Komodo dragon leaps quickly from its hiding place. It bites the creature with its sharp teeth. Then it knocks it to the ground. The large lizard usually eats almost everything. It even eats the bones, hooves, and skin. It can finish a meal in 20 minutes. Did the idea for storybook dragons come from the dragons of Komodo? It's not likely. Only the people living on Komodo knew about these lizards until 1910. That is when some visitors to the island first saw them. Today, Komodo dragons are rare. There are only about 4,000 still alive. In the wild, they all live on Komodo and a few islands close to it. Would you like to see these lizards? You do not have to make the long journey to Indonesia. You can see them at several zoos around the country, including the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. However, do not look for them at your local petting zoo. Do you know why? Interesting. Why would we not look for them at our local petting zoo? Well, they are not creatures you would like to pet. They are very fierce and dangerous. Okay, that's a cool story. Let's go through the questions together, shall we? Question 1. Why would it be rare to see a Komodo dragon in this country? Well, how many are there? Let's look in the text. Komodo dragons are rare. Remember that rare means you don't see it often. The next sentence says, there are only about 4,000 still alive. That's actually a really small number. 4,000 of any animal is quite small. So Komodo dragons would be quite rare to see because there are only 4,000. Question 2. How did people outside of Komodo first become aware of Komodo dragons? Remember, aware means to know of something. But how did they first become aware? Here in this paragraph. Only the people living on Komodo knew about these lizards until 1910. That is when some visitors to the island first saw them. So it wasn't until 1910 that people outside of Komodo became aware of the dragons because they visited the island. Question 3. Why is a journey to Komodo impossible by car? The journey is the trip. Where is Komodo? Let's see. Okay. Komodo is in Indonesia. Indonesia is made up of thousands of islands, and Komodo is one of the smaller ones. So Komodo is an island. Therefore, you cannot travel there by car. You must take a boat. Question 4. What kind of help could local people give you if you wanted to travel across Komodo Island? The local people are the people living in the country. So they live on Komodo Island. Now, the story doesn't tell us exactly what kind of advice they could give us, but you might think how we can travel across Komodo Island. What would they tell you? Would they tell you to rent a car, to use a bike, or maybe they would tell you to walk? Remember, Komodo Island is one of the smaller islands in Indonesia. Question 5. How does a Komodo dragon use its fangs? Do you remember the word fangs? It's the two sharp teeth that some animals have. Let's find the word fangs. Fangs is here. Okay. Can you see this sentence? It bites the creature with its sharp teeth. Then it knocks it to the ground. The large lizard usually eats almost everything. So the Komodo dragon uses the fangs to bite into the animal. This is how it kills its meal. And it eats everything, even the hooves. Question 6. How might a deer use its hooves to defend itself against the dragon? This answer is not in the story, but you have to think about an animal like a deer with hooves. What would it do? Maybe it would kick the dragon or step on the dragon. The hooves are at the bottom of its feet. So it can do many things like kick or step on its head or something similar like that. Question 4. Which do you think a Komodo dragon would prefer for a meal? A wild boar, a deer, or a snake? Explain your answer. This question is asking you, what do you think? And you have to explain your answer. So there's not one right answer. A wild boar, deer, or snake? What do you think? Why would it prefer the boar, the deer, or the snake? Maybe it's really hungry and it wants to eat a big meal. But be sure to answer with because. So you must say, I think. And then I think it would eat a boar. I think it would eat a deer. Because. And then explain your answer. Because. Question 8. Which details in the passage show that the Komodo dragon is fierce? Well, there are lots of examples, but you have to choose one. These creatures are big. Does that tell us that it's fierce? Not really. Remember, fierce means that it's aggressive, usually because it's hungry. In this part of the paragraph, it talks a lot about when it's hungry. The Komodo dragon leaps quickly from its hiding place. It bites the creature with its sharp teeth. It can finish a meal in 20 minutes. These are all examples of how it's fierce. So you can choose 1 or 2 sentences to write about. Question 9. Where would you look in an atlas to find Washington, D.C.? Well, Washington, D.C. is in America. So if you used an atlas, you would look for America. And then once you find America, you would have to find Washington, D.C. It's in the top left. The top right. I think it looks like this. There we go. This is kind of what America looks like. And Washington, D.C. is somewhere over here. But first, you would have to find America. 10. How do the lengths of days and nights compare on Komodo because it's fairly close to the equator? Remember that the equator is in the middle of the Earth. So the days and nights are almost the same length. It's usually the same length all year. So those are all of our questions for Unit 11. If you need, you can pause the video and go through it slowly. Thanks for joining me. See you next week. Bye-bye.